Hello! So, nagpe-prepare na po tayo ngayon. Paalis na tayo. Empake tayong konti. Punta tayo sa Plano, up north of Dallas, para sa HCG procedure ko. At after that, so 2 o'clock yung appointment ko for my HCG. HSG procedure. So, ito siya. HSG. Ayan yung dyan ako pupunta. Texas Health. Ganyan siya. So, sabi dito, HSG is an X-ray test that examines the inside of the uterus and fallopian tubes. An HSG is used to help diagnose certain problems of the uterus and fallopian tubes. It is performed by a board-certified radiologist in a fluoroscopy room. And this is a room where my HSG procedure was done. Before the procedure, you should schedule the HSG within 5 to 10 days from the starting day of your period. So, may timing siya. Dapat within 5 to 10 days talaga. No later. Upon arrival at the hospital, you will register at the front desk. After registration, you will proceed to the radiology department where you will be asked for a urine specimen so that the pregnancy test can be performed prior to the procedure. A radiological technologist will explain the procedure to you. Get a prior reproductive health history. Obtain consent and answer any questions you may have. Be sure and let us know if you have any allergies, especially to iodine. Please inform us if you have a pelvic infection or experience heavy uterine bleeding. Kasi, so naka-antibiotic na ako since yesterday, which is 1 day before the procedure. And then today also, which is the 2nd day, the procedure itself. And then tomorrow again. The 3rd day. So, 6 pills yon ng doxycycline para ma-prevent yung infection. Kasi what they're gonna do is mag-i-inject sila ng iodine solution sa reproductive system ko.
Blocked fallopian tubes, or an abnormal uterine cavity, may cause infertility. Hysterosalpingography, or HSG, is an X-ray test to outline the internal shape of the uterus and show whether the fallopian tubes are blocked. In HSG, a thin tube is threaded through the vagina and cervix. A substance known as contrast material is injected into the uterus. A series of X-rays or fluoroscopy follows the dye, which appears white on X-ray, as it moves into the uterus and then into the tubes. If there is an abnormality in the shape of the uterus, it will be outlined. If the tube is blocked, the dye stops and flows back into the uterus. If the tube is open, the dye gradually fills it. The dye spills into the pelvic cavity, where the body resorbs it.
Mag-i-inject sila ng iodine solution sa reproductive system ko. Tapos, aantayin, yun yung masakit na part. So, uminom na rin ako ng ibuprofen ngayon, Advil, 800 milligrams to prevent me from having severe, like to lessen the chances of me feeling the pain, kasi sabi nila sharp pain daw yun for like less than a minute. So, syempre ayoko naman maramdaman yung sakit na yon, yung sharp pain na sinasabi nila, kaya uminom ako 1 hour and a half prior to my procedure. So, uminom na ako kasi papunta na tayo in few minutes sa Plano. After that schedule, after ng procedure ko, diretso naman tayo sa Veterinary Eye Institute. I think, kung tama. Yeah. Para sa ophthalmologist. Sorry, kakakain ko lang. Ophthalmology consult ni Preston para sa mata niya kasi yung left eye niya suspectedly na scratch ng isa sa mga puppies ko pa dito, ng isa sa mga Dallas Pom. So, papatignan natin what's going on sa mata niya. Hopefully, nothing serious. Sana madaan sa gamot. Sana hindi na kailangan ng surgery. So, ayun. So, let's get prepared. Okay, so we're in the waiting area now. We were given this one, and it's gonna vibrate like in the restaurant. And they said the number right here in the mail is gonna change. And just waiting for now. Let me see. So guys, we were sent into this room. Right here. I think this is a dressing area right here. And they just took a urine sample from me. So let's wait and see what's going to be the next step. All right? Still here in the waiting area. And just reading all these notes right here posted on the wall. I'm not worried about anything because I don't have any of those restrictions for the radiology procedure.
HSG, which stands for hysterosalpingogram. The procedure examines the shape and contour of the uterus. It also determines if the fallopian tubes are normal and open. The HSG is usually scheduled after you stop bleeding from your period but before you ovulate, and usually takes a few minutes to perform. The physician will place a speculum in the vagina in order to see the cervix, which is similar to a pap smear. The cervix is cleansed with an antiseptic solution, and then a thin plastic catheter is advanced through the cervix. Depending on the type of catheter used, the catheter may be advanced into the uterus and a small balloon inflated to keep the catheter in place. A water-soluble contrast dye will then be injected through the catheter, which will then fill the uterus and fallopian tubes, and then will spill out of the fallopian tubes into the pelvis. X-rays will be taken as the dye is being injected and allows the physician to watch the dye fill the uterus and travel down the tubes. Your physician will then go over the images with you and describe the findings of the study. An HSG can detect fibroids, polyps, or scarring that may impact the uterine cavity and prevent an embryo from implanting properly into the uterus. It can also detect fallopian tube blockages that prevent sperm and egg from meeting. A blockage of the beginning part of the tube is called a proximal tubal occlusion, and a blockage at the end part of the tube is called a distal tubal occlusion. A distal tubal occlusion results in the buildup of fluid in the fallopian tube called a hydrosalpinx. The fluid that will accumulate in the hydrosalpinx can flow back into the uterus and be toxic to an embryo and make it more difficult to conceive. The procedure is associated with a few common side effects: pain similar to menstrual cramps, especially as the dye is being injected, vaginal spotting or light bleeding, and watery discharge.
Okay guys, so we are done now. I placed back my personal clothing and we're heading out now. They said I can go, and this is the shortcut to back to the lobby. Yes, this is where they took my temperature and did some interview. My experience, guys, was personally very similar to whenever I get my pap smear. Yes, it was very painful, but the pain is caused by injection of speculum, not when they introduced or injected the contrast medium into me, as what I was expecting the pain will be caused by. My OB and fertility doctors said I will always get the pain basically whenever something is introduced into me, and pelvic pain during menstrual cycles because of my endometrioma.